This is our depiction of archetype 52, stillness, the Buddha, in the higher frequency, as our archetypes are really about anchoring that gift frequency, the human pathway. They are a little bit kind of superheroes, and at the same time, it's quite easy to relate to them. So in the best of our days, in the best moment, I think that we can definitely embody the 64 archetypes. We are not speaking so much about the shadow pattern. That's what we are finding, of course, in the Gene Key book, the repressive, the reactive. So we call this archetype the mountain. It is in transit from June 24th to June 30th. In human design, this is the gate of inaction. In the I Ching, we call this hexagram keeping still. And in the Gene Keys, the frequency band go from the shadow of stress to the city of stillness, and the human pathway is restraint. When we look at it from an I Ching perspective, the I Ching is the same wheel as the zodiac wheel. It's just that we have the numbers of the I Ching as well on the sky. So we could say the I Ching is the Eastern way, the Chinese way of mapping the sky. And then the tropical zodiac that we have here is the Western way of mapping the sky. So we see here that the 52 lives in the part of the wheel where we have the mountain trigram on the bottom. So all these archetypes that you see up here, the wild woman, the mountain, the liberator, the initiator, the scientist, the comedian, the president, and the medicine woman are going to have the mountain trigram on the bottom. And you can also see that that is what goes through Cancer and a little bit of Leo in terms of the correspondence with the astrology that we all know. And here we're looking at the specific hexagram where we have mountain over mountain. So this is the purest energy of mountain. In each element, there's going to be one hexagram that has the same trigram twice. That's where we have that pure energy. And that's also where we don't have a braid when we look at the Gene Key geometry. And I actually didn't have that in this presentation because there is actually in the Living Library a little kind of, not a braid, but a little kind of poetry. So let me read that to you. So stress is constricted breathing. Restraint is the torque for great change. Stillness is the center point. And then it says, keeping still, back straight and solid like a mountain. The heart opens through stillness. When it's time to rest, when it's time to act, act. So now we're looking at the astrological wheel, and we see that the 52 lives in the part of the wheel that is Cancer, the fourth sign, which is also connected to the fourth house, which is ruled by the moon. Cancer's cardinal water is the first time in the wheel that we have the water element if we start in Aries. Cancer is the surface of the waters that bathe in light and bring forth new life. So here we are very much in the superficial water where the sun can still come in, where things nurture and grow. There's still light there. So very different from the 8th house, 8th sign Scorpio energy, where we are in the deep waters. We can't really see anything. We have to surrender to not knowing, surrender to that process of transformation. And then on the other side, there is a rebirth. And then we have the 12th sign, the 12th house with Pisces, where it's even more kind of limitless. It's hard to even know where I end and you start. So it's more even that kind of symbiotic or tantric kind of waters that we have the third time. Cancer is the life bringer, the nurturer, and the caregiver. It is service to other through the caring waters of unconditional love. And it's also quite moody, right? Because we have the moon, which is what fluctuates the most, and it has to do with our subjective experience of things. So here in Cancer, moody. We're in the quarter of civilization where the purpose is fulfilled through form. So you can see here, in this part, we have a lot of yin on the bottom. So yin, the 4. And here we have complete yin, but even in the mountain trigram, we have the 2 bottom ones that are open lines, yin lines. If you have your life's work or your personality sun in this part of the wheel, you're probably somebody that's more interested in things that are tangible and that you can touch than, for example, in ideas that you have in the first part of the wheel. Here we're looking at the body graph. We are in the root center. This is a pressure center. It's also motor. We have stress and adrenaline. I would say fuel is a good word. We have 9 different fuels in the root center. Like you saw before, this is the gate of inaction, which is that you have fuel and you don't act on it, then it can feel like very agitated or very stressful in the body. But this is actually the fuel to be able to focus. Depending on the rest of the chemistry in us and around us is how this kind of plays out. We'll speak more about that. So here are all those 9 fuels that we have in the root center. And for example, if we just look at the programming partner, the 58 that is here, that is the fuel to experiment because it goes up through this part of the circuitry to the experimentation that we have in the 1648. So it's the fuel to experience. So that is a different fuel, right, than what's the programming partner 52, the fuel to focus. And we could do that with all 9 of them like we do in Thrive by Design. In those classes, Ash and I go through each and every gate, and also we connect it to the other side and look at the whole process. So we're looking at the other side, that's the harmonic gate, which is 9. And this is the channel of concentration, a design of determination. It's a generated channel because connecting to the sacral center, the generator. Theme here, the ideal of your life is to use your power of concentration in the service of improving something that will make a difference in the world. And if you know some of the names of incarnation crosses, in one of the crosses that have the 52 and the 58 is the cross of service. We have for the mountain, the keywords are groundedness, focus, and service. For the mountaineer, the 9. For the mountain, 52. Then we have groundedness, focus, and service is the keywords. And then the 9, the harmonic gate, we have focus, details, and planning. And here we have the keywords for the whole entire channel. So this comes from Integral Human Design, which is the combination between Human Design and Gene Keys that Richard Rudd and Werner Pitzel came up with like probably 13, 14 years at least ago now. They mapped every single thing in the whole entire body graph, and they created frequency band for everything, the centers, the channels, everything. And Richard is not really using that a lot. He really just uses the frequency band for the gate or gene key. So in what they are actually using now, if you go to Integral Human Design, you're going to see that. I'll put the link in the chat later if you want to as well, because they have some cool things you can buy, like transcripts. There's not a lot of things out there, but recently they started to have a newsletter again and all that. But if you see is that Richard took the gates and the gene keys and developed that, and Werner is using the body graph and all the other things really in his work. So it's almost like they divided it between them. Oh yeah, I'm going to tell you about the process before we move on. So when you have the shadow of stress with the shadow of inertia, that is rigidity for this process in the low frequency. When you have determination and restraint, that is stability. And that's so true. People that have this channel, well, yeah, there is definitely inherent stability in those people. And then stillness and invincibility, well, that's infinity. So if you have this channel, or if you make up this as an electromagnetic with somebody else, it's cool to be able to also look at that frequency band and not only the individual ones. Here, like I said before, the 58 and the 52 are programming partners. They are both in the root center. They are both different kinds of fuel. The gate 58 is called the gate of aliveness or the joyous. And they are opposite in the wheel because they're programming partners. So we could say in astrology that they are polarity points. We have, like we said, the 52 in Cancer, and then we have the 58 in Capricorn. And what you're going to see as well, they are perfect mirror opposites in the actual hexagram structure. So wherever the 52 has a yin line, the 58 has a yang line, and vice. And here, so this is collective circuitry. This is logical understanding. And the keynote is sharing. It is about pattern recognition. And this whole circuitry cares about understanding and speaking, sharing, so that we can understand and move forward. And you can understand how there is a little bit of tension, can be a little bit of tension in this gate when the 52 feels like there's nothing important enough to speak about. So it's like still in silence. And all the other gates, all the other archetypes, they were like, "Oh, we want to see the pattern. We want the fuel for the pattern." And it's not time to, when it's time to rest, when it's time to act. But that really comes from, is there fuel or not in the 52? So all these gates, all these archetypes, like you can see this like a city, right? All these archetypes depend on the fuel of the 52 and the 58, we could say, it's all with experimentation.